do you think the future of social media is like?
Well, that's a good question. I think if we look where we are right now, uh, we have one sort of monolithic platform that is really taken over the world in Facebook. And I think most people consider social media to equate with Facebook, perhaps with a little bit of Twitter thrown in. I think in the future, and it's hard to say whether this would be 5, 10 years or 20 or 30 years, or possibly shorter, people will understand that social media means being social online. It doesn't equate to a platform like Facebook. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that Cheryl or Mark would want to hear at Facebook. But I think the nuance of what social media is how do we clothe ourselves to be social beings online? How do we create and instrument who we are online in different contexts? Facebook, I don't think, does a very good job of allowing you to be more than one thing online. You are your social graph. You are the friends that you have. That's extremely important, and it's obvious that it's very valuable to all of us because we all, for the most part, do use Facebook. But it is a crude instrument at the moment. I think that we as a culture are going to get to the point where we are very comfortable instrumenting our identity across a digital platform in many, many different ways. Just as we instrument who we are in the real world in many ways. When you come to class, you dress one way. When you go out at night, you dress another way. When you are in a job interview, you dress a third way. We're going to start dressing ourselves in digital identities, and this is going to become behavior that we use and leverage and understand. Right now, it feels like work. And as a matter of fact, it's way too much work. And you have to kind of like, well, I've got my LinkedIn profile, I've got my Facebook profile, I've got my Twitter, but I know that sometimes my coworkers or my my friends watch what I do there, so I have to be careful what I say. Mm-hmm. It's just too hard to instrument all of that. And I think we're going to see tools and behaviors develop in an ecosystem where we're as comfortable online being social as we are in the real world. And so that to me is the future of social media. I don't believe that it will be a monoculture of just one platform like Facebook.
Well, I have two follow-ups for you. That was a great answer. Obviously lots of things in your answer. One is, I know that Zuckerberg has said that everybody has only one personality. So you're basically saying that that is not true. Is that
I think everybody
correct?
has an absolute infinite number of personalities.
Right.
So I think we may be trying to solve the problem from two different ends, which is to say that there is one personality that is the composite of all the potential of what we are as human beings, yeah. and that composite is our personality. But I think we reveal in an infinite number of ways who we are in an infinite number of situations. And that instrumentation is essentially what, differentiates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Yeah, we have spent literally millions of years learning how to be humans together. And that differentiates us and has been the basis of our accelerated evolution. And we are so early in the equivalent evolution of our digital tools. And so Mark and I may be arguing the same point from different points of view, but I think what's most interesting about this follow-up question from you is that we very quickly get to questions of philosophy and what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And much smarter people than me have disagreed on those questions for a very, very long time. So I would not want to necessarily align myself with one individual who happens to be the founder and CEO of Facebook on that question.
What would you say is the most important thing to remember when trying to successfully market a business online?
To remember to act like a human being. I think most people forget that online interaction is intimate and requires an understanding of the sort of basics of conversation and dialogue. Very stuck in their understanding of marketing as being, I've got to prepare a perfect pitch, a perfect message. I've got just the right ad, or just the right offer, or just the right discount. They spend a lot of time agonizing over what words to put on their Yellow Pages ads, for example, or in the circular in the newspaper or whatever. It's important to do that kind of work and have that kind of material prepared, but that's not the kind of material that you use online. Online, you want to be more conversational, you want to be present, and you want to listen and respond, as opposed to dictate and assume that people want to be pushed at. So that's basically being human: listen, respond, as opposed to dictate.
Did you see the Oreo thing? Oreo kind of like pushed for the most amount of likes to win the Guinness Book of World. And then Lil Wayne went and like quintupled their number. Did you see that?
I did. The power of celebrity.
Right.
I'm a little bit, I don't want to anger a marketer like Oreo. On the other hand, I'm not sure what the value of that is, other than kind of stunt value. I find Facebook to be a really interesting marketing sort of puzzle, in that marketers really love measurement, and so when they can measure something like likes, they'll measure themselves by how many they can get.
Right.
I think a far better measurement would be how many engaged contacts over time with customers can you have?
Of course.
Because you can get 1,000 or 1,000,000 people to like you, but can you get 1,000 or 1,000,000 people to engage with your brand over a sustained period of time? That's a far more important metric to my mind than being able to sort of put a feather in your cap that you've got 1,000,000 likes in a day.
That's really interesting, because last week I had the kids look at, the young adults look at tribes and the TED Talks, tribes talk that what's his name? Seth Godin.
Which one?
Seth Godin.
Seth, yeah.
And Seth Godin is talking about how you need 1,000 true fans to start a movement. And it sounds sort of similar to what you're saying, in the sense that
Yeah. I mean, at my company, Federated Media, this is the Marin headquarters here. But at my company, we often get clients who have started working with Facebook and then come to us and say, all right, we now have a fan page, and we have hundreds of thousands of fans, millions of likes. Now what?
Right.
Now what do we do?
Right.
And then we'll work on particularly content-driven programs where the brand is starting to bring value to this audience that they've created. And instead of treating them like a consumer to be marketed to, they treat them like an audience member, and the brand as a publisher, delivering some content of value. And over time, as you do more and more of that, you establish a link between your brand and the consumer of being in service and of value. That creates preference, which translates to higher sales. Mm-hmm. But it's not enough to just get people to say I like you. You've got to get people to want to feel like the brand is adding value to your life in some way. Mm-hmm. And if you're in digital media, it strikes me that a good way to do that is through the creation of digital media of value.
Mm-hmm. Last question. You wrote one of the first major books on Google. So what do you think about Google Me and Google's attempt to get into the social media space?
Well, I sure would like to know what Google Me is.
Right.
I think a lot of people would. I don't think they've been very clear on that. I think so Google has one unqualified super social hit, which is YouTube. Right? I mean, it's a monster. Right? If you say, okay, I want to talk about all the social services that exist in the world, one of the top 5 is YouTube. They also have Blogger, which was sort of the original self-publishing expression. And I think that it's lost a lot of its social components. And Tumblr, I think, is sort of, I don't know if your class uses Tumblr, but Tumblr.
They use Blogger. We haven't done Tumblr, but we use Blogger.
Yeah. So Tumblr is sort of, I would say, kind of the next evolution of what Blogger probably wants to be. Mm-hmm. But I think Google as a company both recognizes that it needs to solve the social problem, but is smart enough to know that it should not solve it in the same way that Facebook solved it.
Yeah.
Both because their core business is search, and social is a signal that's extremely important to search, and they, for reasons of business and competition, cannot acquire the Facebook signal. And because they know that you can't succeed by copying, the exact same thing as Facebook, because there is absolutely no reason why any of us would necessarily want to just go do a Me Too service that just does the same thing as Facebook when Facebook works so well already. So they've got a hard problem to solve, which is they need to anticipate the social behavior that we discussed in the first part of this, right? How we're going to be in 5 or 10 years.
Right.
And they need to lay in the ways to acquire that signal from that behavior such that it drives their core business of search. This is non-trivial, but I think at the end of the day it will turn on us being willing to share our social streams, digital, sort of the exhaust of our digital lives online, with our search engine as an app, because we see that it's going to help us get things done better, faster, in a more valuable way.